Amari's palm struck the old woman's cheek before anyone could draw breath. The sound cracked through the dawn like a snapped branch. Birds scattered from the sacred crossing. The old woman staggered but did not fall. She steadied herself with a hand against the stone shrine, her eyes lifting slowly to Amari's face. Gasps rippled through the gathered villagers. "Watch where you stand," Amari snapped, her voice sharp and unrepentant. "You block the path like you own it." The old woman said nothing. She only looked at Amari long enough for something cold to settle in the air, then turned and walked away, her back bent but her steps unhurried. Someone whispered, "That was Mama Keel." Another voice trembled. "At the crossing of spirits." Amari lifted her chin. "Old bones and foolish fears," she said loudly. "The world doesn't stop for age." No one answered her. They simply watched as she walked on, the early sun catching the sharp lines of her face, her posture proud, defiant, unbowed. Behind her, murmurs bloomed like rot. "She has no shame. She never did. She'll bring trouble on us all." Amari heard every word. "She always did." And she smiled as if they were compliments. Endam village woke fully as she passed through it. Women drew water from the well and fell silent when they saw her. Children were pulled aside by anxious hands. Men paused in their work, eyes following her with open disdain. "She thinks herself a queen," one man muttered. Amari stopped and turned. "Say it louder," she challenged. "If you have a tongue, use it." The man looked away. Others laughed nervously. She continued on, boots striking the packed earth with deliberate force. They hated her because they feared her, she told herself. Because she refused to shrink. Because she would not bend her neck like the rest of them. At the edge of the village stood her family's house, small and weather-worn, crouched beside the ancestral grove. Her mother, Sarah, was already outside, wringing her hands. "What did you do?" Sarah asked the moment Amari came into view. Her voice shook. "People are saying things." Amari rolled her eyes. "People always say things. This time it's different," Sarah pleaded. "They say you struck Mama Keel." "So?" Amari shot back. "Should I kneel because she's old? Should I vanish because she walks slowly?" Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice. "That woman carries the weight of years. You don't know who listens when she speaks." "I know who listens to me," Amari said. "And that should be enough." Her father, Bako, emerged from the doorway, his face lined with worry. "Amari," he said gently, "there are paths you don't trample." She scoffed. "You sound like them." "I sound like someone who loves you," he replied. "Strength without restraint becomes cruelty." Amari laughed, sharp and humorless. "Cruelty is this village pretending I don't belong. I won't apologize for existing." She brushed past them and disappeared inside. Later that morning, at the village well, the whispers returned. Amari heard them before she saw the women gathered there. She hit her. "I told you pride would ruin her. Look at her face, no softness at all." Amari stepped into the circle. "If you're going to talk about me," she said coolly, "at least have the courage to do it to my face." One maiden swallowed. "We were just saying. That my face frightens you?" Amari interrupted. "Good. Fear keeps people honest." Another woman muttered, "The spirits marked her." Amari leaned closer. "If the spirits marked me," she said quietly, "it was to remind you how small you are." Silence fell heavy and suffocating. She turned away before anyone could answer, her heart pounding not with doubt, but with the familiar burn of being surrounded by enemies. By dusk, the wind shifted. Dogs howled near the grove. Birds fled the trees. Mama Keel passed by Amari's home without stopping. Her lips moved, just once, too softly for words to carry. That night, Amari slept like stone. Then she screamed. The pain ripped her from sleep, white-hot and blinding. She clawed at her face, gasping as her skin burned and tightened beneath her fingers. "Mother," she cried. "Father." Sarah burst into the room. "Amari." Her scream echoed louder when she saw her daughter's face, swollen, darkened, twisted with agony. Bako rushed in. "By the ancestors." Amari tried to speak but her lips felt heavy, wrong. Her eyes burned as if sand had been poured beneath the lids. "It hurts," she sobbed. "Make it stop. Please." By morning, the village knew. They gathered at a distance, staring openly now. Some crossed themselves. Others shook their heads. "It's begun." Moralstory never speaks twice. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, wiping tears from Amari's cheeks. "We must fetch Io," she whispered. "He will know what to do." Amari listened to the murmurs outside, each one a knife. Look at her now. Pride doesn't protect forever. For the first time in her life, Amari turned her face away, not in anger, but in fear. And somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice asked a question she had never allowed before. What if they were right? Amari was carried through the village on her father's back, her face hidden beneath a cloth, but it did nothing to stop the stares. They say her skin hardened overnight. My cousin saw her eyes like they were closing in on themselves. This is what happens when you insult age. Each whisper scraped against her mind. She wanted to scream at them, to curse them for watching her suffer, but every breath felt thick and painful. Her pride still burned, but now it had nowhere to stand. Io's hut sat atop red clay hill, its doorway dark and narrow. The healer was already waiting, his expression grave as Bako lowered Amari onto a woven mat. "Let me see her," Io said. Sarah hesitated. "Please, be gentle." Io lifted the cloth slowly. His breath caught, just for a moment, before he masked it. "This is not fever," he said quietly. His fingers hovered but barely touched her skin. "Nor poison." Amari forced her swollen lips to move. "Then fix it." Io met her gaze. "Child. I cannot." Sarah's knees buckled. "What do you mean you cannot?" "This sickness did not enter through the body," Io replied. "It was invited through the spirit." Bako's voice cracked. "You're saying this is a reckoning," Io finished. "A word spoken where words carry weight." Amari's chest tightened. "You're all liars," she rasped. "There is always a cure." Io shook his head slowly. "There is always a choice." "That is not the same thing." They carried her home in silence. That night, the pain worsened. Her joints ached as though they were being pulled apart from the inside. Sleep came in short, cruel bursts, each one ending in gasping terror. "I don't want to die," she whispered at one point, clutching her mother's hand. Sarah wept openly. "Then we will fix this. Whatever it takes." But by the second day, Amari could barely stand. By the third, her voice was reduced to a hoarse whisper. Her reflection in the water bowl made her flinch. "Don't look," she murmured. Sarah ignored her. "You are still my daughter." Outside, the village watched. They say the curse grows stronger each dawn. She still hasn't gone to Moralstory. Stubborn to the end. Amari heard them all. On the fourth night, when breathing felt like dragging air through thorns, Bako knelt beside her bed. "Amari," he said softly, "listen to me." She turned her swollen face away. "I raised you to be strong," he continued. "But strength is not the same as standing alone. Sometimes it is knowing when to kneel." Her fingers tightened in the blanket. "If I kneel," she whispered, "they win." "No," he said. "You live." She said nothing. Later, Sarah fell to her knees at the foot of the bed. "I will go in your place," she sobbed. "I will beg her. I will take the shame." Amari's eyes flew open. "No. You're dying," Sarah cried. "I won't watch my child fade for the sake of pride." Amari swallowed painfully. Images flashed through her mind, Moralstory's calm eyes, the sound of her own hand striking flesh, the way she had walked away without anger. What if silence was worse than rage? "Leave me," Amari whispered. Sarah hesitated. "Amari." "Leave," she said again, firmer now. That night, Amari did not sleep. Before dawn, she rose. Her legs trembled violently as she stood, but she refused help. She wrapped a shawl around her head and stepped outside while the world was still gray and quiet. Every step toward the forest burned. Her lungs screamed. Twice she nearly collapsed, gripping tree trunks until the shaking passed. "Just breathe," she muttered to herself. "Just walk." The path to Moralstory's hut felt longer than any road she had ever known. When she reached it, the door was already open. Amari sat inside, stirring a pot that smelled faintly of roots and smoke. "You came," the old woman said without turning. Amari fell to her knees. The movement sent pain lancing through her body, but she welcomed it. "I was cruel," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought fear made me powerful. I was wrong." Amari finally turned. "What did you come for?" she asked. Amari bowed her head until it touched the earth. "Forgiveness." Silence stretched. "Not relief." Amari pressed. "Not beauty. Not the lifting of pain." Amari's throat tightened. "I deserve the pain," she said. "But I don't want to be who I was." Amari studied her for a long moment. Then she spoke. "Pain teaches where pride refuses," she said. "You struck me because you believed yourself above consequence." "I know," Amari whispered. "Then hear this," Amari continued. "No chant will save you. No herb will heal you. Change will." She rose slowly and opened the door wider. "Go home. Live differently. Let humility speak louder than your mouth ever did." Amari bowed again, tears soaking the dirt. When she stood, the pain was still there, but something had shifted. It no longer felt endless. She turned and began the long walk home. And with every step, the weight on her chest eased just a little. Amari reached the edge of Endam village just as the sun crested the hills. Sweat soaked her clothes, and her legs shook so badly she had to stop and steady herself against a fence post. Two women drawing water froze when they saw her. "It's her," one whispered. Amari straightened slowly and bowed her head. "Good morning," she said, forcing the words through swollen lips. The women stared, stunned. No insult followed. No sharp reply. Only silence as Amari moved past them toward her home. Sarah saw her first and let out a cry that was half relief, half fear. "You came back." "I did," Amari whispered. Bako stepped forward, eyes searching her face. "Did you?" "I begged," Amari said. Her voice cracked. "I begged with my whole heart." They pulled her into their arms, careful of her pain, and for the first time since the night of the curse, Amari allowed herself to cry openly. That afternoon, she slept for hours. When she woke, the burning in her skin had dulled to a heavy ache. She raised a trembling hand to her face and felt it, still swollen, still marked, but softer. Less angry. "It's changing," Sarah whispered, or creeping into her voice. Amari said nothing. She remembered Amari's words. "Change first. Healing follows." The next morning, Amari rose early and went outside. The village stirred cautiously, eyes following her from doorways. She felt their doubt like weight on her shoulders. An elder woman approached, leaning on a cane. Amari recognized her, someone she had mocked openly once, laughing at her crooked walk. Amari stepped forward and bowed deeply. "I wronged you," she said. "I spoke with cruelty. I ask your forgiveness." The elder blinked, then nodded slowly. "Sit with me sometime," she said. "Listen more than you speak." "I will," Amari replied. Word spread quickly. She bowed. She apologized. She didn't shout. Some scoffed. "It won't last." Others watched in quiet disbelief. Amari helped her mother grind grain, though her joints screamed in protest. She fetched water without complaint. When someone insulted her under their breath, she kept walking. Each act of restraint felt harder than any insult she had ever thrown. That night, the swelling reduced again. By the third day, her breathing eased. By the fifth, her eyes opened fully. The pain retreated inch by inch, as if testing her sincerity. Still, the village resisted forgiving her. "She's pretending," a man said openly near the well. Amari turned to him calmly. "You may be right," she said. "Watch me anyway." That evening, a child tripped near the grove and scraped his knee. Before anyone else could move, Amari knelt beside him, tearing her shawl to bind the wound. "Does it hurt?" she asked gently. The child nodded, surprised by her softness. "Bravery doesn't mean not crying," she said. "It means standing again." His mother stared at Amari as if seeing her for the first time. Days passed. The change held. Amari still bore marks on her face, but they no longer twisted her expression. Her voice grew steadier. Her posture softened, not smaller, but grounded. One afternoon, Bako sat beside her as she rested. "You walk differently," he said. "I listen now," Amari replied. "That is heavier than walking," he said with a small smile. The true test came when Memarkeel returned to Ndam. Whispers raced ahead of her arrival like sparks on dry grass. "She's coming. The one who cursed her." Amari stood at the edge of the path, heart pounding. When Memarkeel appeared, Amari stepped forward and bowed low, holding the position without looking up. "Welcome," Amari said simply. Memarkeel paused, then smiled. The village exhaled as one. That night, Amari sat alone beneath the stars, touching her face thoughtfully. She was not who she had been. She would never be. And for the first time, she felt grateful. If you're still watching and you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video. It helps more stories like this reach you. Amari closed her eyes, breathing in the cool night air, unaware that her greatest test had already passed and that her quiet strength would soon be spoken of far beyond Ndam. The days that followed settled into something the village had never known from Amari: consistency. Not loud apologies shouted for attention. Not grand gestures meant to be seen. Just quiet choices, made again and again. When elders spoke, she listened. When tempers flared, she stepped back. When insults came, and they still did, she absorbed them without returning fire. Each time her old instincts surged, she felt the echo of pain in her bones, like a warning tapped gently from the inside. "Are you angry?" Sarah asked one evening as they worked side by side. Amari considered the question carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But I no longer let anger decide who I am." Sarah smiled through tired eyes. "That is all I ever prayed for." The village slowly shifted. It did not happen in a single moment. Trust rarely does. At first, people watched from a distance. Then they tested her. A woman accused her of stealing water. Amari calmly explained where she had been and offered to help refill the jar. A man mocked her scars openly. Amari met his gaze and said, "You may speak. I will still choose peace." That unsettled them more than shouting ever had. One afternoon, a group of children followed her as she walked toward the grove. "Why does your face look different?" one asked bluntly. Amari knelt to their level. "Because I learned something the hard way." "Did it hurt?" another asked. "Yes," Amari said honestly. "But it saved me." They nodded, satisfied, and ran off laughing. By the second week, the pain had nearly vanished. The swelling was gone. What remained were faint marks, uneven, imperfect, undeniable. Amari no longer tried to hide them. "They remind me," she told Bako one morning when he caught her studying her reflection. "They keep me awake." "Good," he said gently. "Some lessons are meant to stay." News of her change traveled beyond Ndam. Travelers paused longer. Traders spoke of her quietly. A woman who once struck an elder and was struck back by life itself, yet chose to rise differently. One evening, Amari overheard two men speaking near the fire. She could have turned bitter. She didn't. That takes strength. Amari did not step forward. She simply kept walking, heart steady. The true ending did not come with celebration. It came quietly, the way all lasting things do. Memarkeel passed through the village one final time. No whispers followed her now. No fear. Only respect. Amari saw her approaching and stopped what she was doing. She bowed, not out of obligation, not out of fear, but from a place that felt anchored deep in her chest. Memarkeel paused. "You walk lighter," the old woman said. "I carry less," Amari replied. Memarkeel studied her face, her posture, the stillness in her eyes. "Then the crown no longer cuts." Amari lifted her head. "It never belonged on my brow," she said softly. Memarkeel smiled, not the knowing smile of warning this time, but something warm. Something human. Without another word, she continued on her path. The village watched her go. That night, Amari sat alone beneath the same sky that had once felt so small and hostile. Now it felt wide. Forgiving. She thought of who she had been. The girl who mistook loudness for power. Who believed fear was respect. Who wore pride like armor and wondered why she was always bleeding. She thought of who she was becoming. Not smaller. Not broken. Aware. If this story has moved you, if it's made you reflect even a little, take a moment to like the video. It truly helps more stories like this find their way to people who need them. Amari stood and walked back toward the glow of her home. Sarah looked up and smiled. Bako raised his cup in quiet acknowledgement. For the first time, Amari felt she belonged, not because she demanded it, but because she had learned how to stand among others without standing above them. And that was the true crown. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful tales, share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know, have you ever had a moment where humility changed your path? Some lessons arrive gently, others carve their way in, but all of them, if we listen, can lead us home.